In this presentation, I will cover the actions, motives, implications, and historical importance of the Pullman Strike. The Pullman Strike occurred from May 11, 1894 to July 20, 1894, as a result of intense economic hardship and widespread discontent among workers. It quickly escalated into a nationwide movement that highlighted the struggle for workers' rights during a period of economic depression. The goals of the strike included union recognition, wage increases, and reductions in high rent imposed on laborers in the company-owned town of Pullman. Workers aimed to challenge corporate practices that disregarded their welfare. Although the American Railway Union (ARU) demonstrated solidarity with the striking workers, the strike failed. Federal intervention brought the strike to a close, underscoring the tensions between government, labor unions, and corporations. The implications of the Pullman strike were profound, influencing national labor policy and initiating discussions about the government's role in labor movements. The historical context surrounding the Pullman strike involves the economic depression of 1893, which significantly impacted various industries including the railroad sector. The Pullman Palace Car Company, known for manufacturing railroad cars, was situated in Pullman, Illinois, a town specifically created for housing employees from the company. During the economic depression, the company faced financial difficulties. In response, the company's management implemented cuts of about 30% to the labor force to preserve profits. Employees voiced their concerns regarding the company's decisions, but management consistently refused to acknowledge their complaints. Workers attempted to communicate with George M. Pullman, the president of the company, in hopes of negotiating improved working conditions, wage increases, and rent reductions. However, Pullman, much like the management team, ignored the workers' concerns and declined to meet with them. The lack of communication and the disregard for their requests intensified the workers' resentment and hopelessness. On May 11, 1894, the workers united to take decisive actions through a strike. They organized a collective mass walkout from their jobs, hoping this would compel company management or George M. Pullman to reconsider their requests. The leader of the American Railway Union, Eugene V. Debs, endorsed the strike by helping to organize a nationwide boycott of trains carrying Pullman cars. With his support, employees effectively paralyzed rail traffic, significantly impacting the delivery of mail and commerce. Traffic was stopped in 27 states from Chicago to the West Coast. The General Managers Association, GMA, a group representing Chicago's railroad companies, sought help from the government to shut the strike down after this boycott. By the end of June, sympathy strikes had spread, involving approximately 125,000 workers from 29 railroads. Debs played a critical role in coordinating these efforts, urging workers to maintain peace despite rising tensions. The backing from the ARU was crucial in amplifying the strike's impact, gaining support from railroad workers across the nation, and laying the foundation for a broader labor movement. As the boycott escalated, federal intervention became inevitable. On June 29, some crowd members attending a Debs speech in Blue Island, Illinois, set fires to nearby buildings and derailed a locomotive attached to a U.S. mail train. Following this event, the federal government viewed the strike as a threat to national mail delivery. Cleveland sent over 2,000 federal troops from 5 garrisons to the city. The nationwide strike was broken, and its union leaders were arrested and jailed on charges of conspiracy to obstruct interstate commerce, violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, and the obstruction of U.S. mails. U.S. Attorney General Richard Olney obtained a federal injunction against the strike, effectively criminalizing the ARU's actions. The strike quickly gained national attention, and the public expressed sympathy for the workers' plight. However, the situation escalated rapidly, leading to heightened tensions between workers and the government. The primary motivators for the strike stemmed from a combination of adverse economic conditions and the refusal and disregard for management and George M. Pullman. The Pullman strike of 1894 represents a crucial turning point for American labor relations, leading to significant changes in the dynamics between labor and government. The federal government's deployment of military force to suppress the strike indicated the government's increasing involvement in labor conflicts. It set the precedent for future labor strikes. This intervention from President Grover Cleveland underscored a willingness to prioritize corporate interest and the flow of commerce over workers' rights, which established a framework for future government responses to labor unrest. The violent suppression not only ended the immediate challenges posed by the strikers, but also highlighted the increasing antagonistic relationship between organized labor and governmental authority, suggesting the future strikes would similarly face strong resistance from both corporate and government powers. The Pullman strike also drew national attention to the ongoing struggles faced by industrial workers in an economy increasingly dominated by powerful corporate interests. As the workers rallied because of their grievances, which were the refusal of management to negotiate on wages and rent, their struggle emphasized broader themes of worker exploitation and economic injustice. The strike served as a reminder of the vulnerabilities laborers face in the rapidly industrializing America. It laid the foundation for the rise of organized labor movements in the years that followed, and gained support for unions and labor rights advocacy from the public. Although the strike ultimately failed, the issues it raised around working conditions and workers' rights would continue to fuel labor activism and reform efforts. One significant consequence of the public outrage surrounding the government's heavy-handed response to the Pullman strike was Congress's establishment of Labor Day as a national holiday on June 28, 1894. By enacting this holiday just days before federal troops intervened to brutally dismantle the strike, the government tried to appease the growing labor movement while demonstrating a degree of acknowledgement for workers' contributions to the economy. However, the timing of Labor Day as a holiday also revealed the inherent tensions between labor rights and governmental authority. It highlighted a superficial concession made to ease the restlessness of workforce while also employing military force to suppress legitimate grievances. The aftermath of the Pullman strike encouraged public discourse about labor rights that would continue in the following years. The violent response to the strike prompted critical reflections on the treatment of workers and the role of the government in mediating between labor and capital. As activists, intellectuals, and politicians weighed in on the implications of the strike and its violent suppression, a renewed focus on labor reform emerged. Debates surrounding issues such as fair wages, improved working conditions, and union rights gained significant traction, particularly as American public began to recognize labor unions as essential advocates for workers' rights. The Pullman strike became a focal point for discussions about future of labor relations and set the foundation for legislative measures aimed at protecting workers in an era of rapid industrialization. In the long term, the implications of the Pullman strike can be seen in evolving labor laws in the United States. The awareness it brought to workers' exploitation and the response it generated from both the public and lawmakers emphasized the need for systemic changes in labor practices. The events of 1894 influenced following labor movements and legislative initiatives, eventually culminating in more comprehensive protections for workers, including the establishment of the Fair Labor Standards Act, and labor rights advocacy that would continue through the progressive era. The relationship between corporate power, government intervention, and workers' rights demonstrated during the Pullman strike continues to be discussed in conversations about labor relations today. The Pullman strike is widely recognized as a turning point in American labor history. It fundamentally reshaped the landscape of labor relations and highlighted the urgent need for reforms in corporations. This strike was significant in exposing the severe plight of workers trapped in exploitive conditions and also gaining public consciousness about the injustices workers face. The conflict illustrated the struggles of laborers against the overpowering forces of corporate greed and the inadequate government protections for them, which emphasized the need for comprehensive labor reforms. The strike demonstrated how workers can unify under a common cause to gain support. The involvement of the American Railway Union and its influential leader, Eugene V. Debs, demonstrated the potential for organized labor to advocate effectively for the rights of workers across various sectors. The support shown during the strike served as a powerful motivator for future labor movements. It highlighted the effectiveness of collective action in confronting powerful corporate interests. Unity is a foundational principle of labor rights movements that followed, which have led to more structured and organized labor movements in the United States. The public response to the Pullman strike led to significant changes in labor laws and practices. The violent suppression of the strike and the deployment of federal troops caused outrage from workers and sympathetic members of the public who recognized the unjust treatment of workers. In the aftermath, heightened awareness among the general public regarding the grievances faced by industrial workers helped to generate support for labor rights movements. Increased awareness led to lawmakers considering reforms aimed at improving working conditions, influencing legislation that would shape the future of labor in America. The lessons learned from the events of 1894 were crucial in shaping the policies and practices that evolved during the Progressive Era and well into the 20th century. For example, the public acknowledgement of the grievances of workers during the Pullman strike can be seen as directly influencing later legislation, such as the Wagner Act of 1935, which strengthened workers' rights to unionize and engage in collective bargaining. The historical significance of the Pullman strike also lies in its demonstration of the relationship between economic conditions, workers' rights, and government policy. The response by both corporate interests and federal government revealed a systemic bias favoring the protection of commerce over the rights and welfare of workers. This dynamic has continued into today's discussions about labor relations. Modern labor movements reflect on the struggles of the past to address present-day issues related to workers' rights, fair wages, and safe working conditions. In conclusion, the historical importance of the Pullman strike cannot be overstated. It illuminated the struggles of industrial workers, increased public awareness, and set the foundation for future labor reforms and movements. It offers valuable insight into the complexities of labor relations in America and the journey to achieve justice and equitable treatment of workers facing systemic challenges. The strike demonstrates the resilience and the strength of the labor movement in the face of adversity. Despite the immediate failure of the strike and the arrest of its leaders, including Debs, the events surrounding the strike empowered future generations of labor activists to continue fighting for justice and equity in the workplace. Today, the Pullman strike is a testament of the ongoing struggle for labor rights in the United States. It is a reminder that the fight for equality and fair treatment in the workplace is a continuous journey that requires unwavering commitment and solidarity among workers.